Hello, and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. You know, one of the neat things that I love about the woodwinds is the fact that when you learn one of them, there's so much you can transfer to other instruments which are similar. Any kind of music that you learn on an instrument, especially a woodwind, I don't think it's so prevalent in a brass instrument, but anything that you learn on a woodwind instrument, a simpler instrument, you can use in playing several other woodwind instruments. And you know, it's unusual, actually, if you have a person that plays only one instrument. Most people who play instruments play more than one. Now, it's not always the same type of instruments. For example, you might have a person who plays flute that also plays violin, and those are two different types of instruments. But it's very unusual for a person to only play one. If you love music and you're mastering one instrument, you just naturally have an interest in learning some more about similar or sometimes different instruments. Now, I have about 350 or so instruments in my collection. I know it's at least that much. It may even be more. It's been 2 or 3 years since I've cataloged them all, and maybe I should do it again just to be sure. But at any rate, I do have a great many instruments, and most of them I play, and most of them are woodwinds because I'm a woodwind specialist. And anytime I see another woodwind instrument, I oftentimes buy it because I'm going to be able to learn how to play it, because I'm going to be able to transfer a lot of the things that I know from one instrument to another instrument. Now, it doesn't make me an expert on the other instrument that I haven't had training in, but it's very, very playable. My father, who was a musical genius, could pick up anything and play. He didn't care what it was. He didn't do much with the strings, but he could play brass, he could play woodwinds. You just give him an instrument and he's got it all figured out. He also repaired all kinds of instruments, even instruments that he knew nothing about. He could pull it apart, he could fix what was wrong with it, he could put it back together, and he did it perfectly every time. So some people are gifted in that. Now, I've been using basically the recorder to teach you about music. And the reason is it can act as a springboard for so many other instruments, yet at the same time it is a legitimate instrument in itself. It is not a toy. I've played classical music. I've arranged classical music for the recorder. It does just fine. It doesn't do everything, but most instruments don't do everything. Most instruments do a lot, however, and even a simple little instrument like a recorder can do an awful lot of music. So what I've done today is I brought in some other instruments, not a lot, because there's only so much I can carry, and I want to show you some of the similarities, and then if we have time after that, I want to show you the parts of the instrument, what makes them tick, what makes them work. You know, I had a pastor friend of mine who teased me and said that I could even play a straw if I wanted to, because of the similarities of the instruments. He thought I could play anything. Playing a straw would be difficult, but on the other hand, there's a possibility I could really do it. So at any rate, this is the recorder, the C Melody recorder. There are about 6 types of recorders, and at some point I'm going to bring them all in. I do have them all, except for the great basses, which cost thousands of dollars. I can't afford that, but I do have a bass. I have a couple of tenors. I've got altos. I've got the C Melody instruments, which is like this one, and I also have the sopranino, which is the smallest instrument made for professional use. So I'm going to bring them all in at some point for a comparison so you can see what they are like. So let me just run up and down the scale for this instrument. You've heard it many times. You'll hear it again. Now, what instruments are like that? If you can remember the pitch, let me pick up some other instruments that are going to be similar. There may be one step difference in the pitch, but most of them are about the same. This is a little song flute. And I have 2 or 3 of these. They really play well. They're not as sophisticated as a recorder. The recorder is a professional instrument that you can pay hundreds of dollars for. This is not like that, but it has a wonderful little soft tone, and it plays the same kind of scale. It's only a one-octave instrument. You can play one octave and maybe another note on top of that. That's the one note you can get beyond the octave. In pitch, it has a nice little tone, and it plays very well. That's the song flute. Now, the tonette, the flutophone. This is a flutophone. They come in black and white or red and white. I do like these instruments. They have a very, very nice little tone. They have a tone hole in the back. They're only like a one-octave instrument, but they play well in that one octave, and one or two notes above and beyond it, like the song flute. So let me just run through this. It's a little bit sharper, I think, than the song flute, but it is actually a very nice instrument, and I have at sometimes done solos on this. I prefer the red and the white. I prefer the color, but the black and the white would be you'd have a black instrument with white accessories. In other words, you'd have the white mouthpiece instead of the red. But they play exactly the same. They sound exactly the same, and this does have a tone hole in the back, right here, if you can see it. I think you can see it. And then there's a little place down here where you can put your thumb. If you use your tone hole, you'll have, the tone hole will be in the back. You have to use it for most of the notes that you play with your left hand, because remember, the left hand always goes on top. The right thumb, what do you do with it? Well, a lot of the smaller instruments don't have a place to put it. You just put it wherever it's comfortable. This has a place where you hook your thumb, so it's always in the same place. That's part of the design of the instrument. You could play it as well, whether this little device was there or not. It's a very, very nice little instrument, easy to play, and a lot of school systems use them, and I can understand why, because they're in pitch with themselves, they have a good tone, you can play a scale easily, they're not hard to blow into, and they're practically indestructible. I say practically. The first time I taught in a school, the person who was the principal decided that they wanted a music program, and they called me and to see if I would accommodate them, and I said I would. So I went in 2 or 3 days a week to teach music, and they said they had their own instruments and they were all sanitized. Well, you've got to sanitize instruments with different kids playing them. They'll be playing the same instrument. He made the mistake of putting a bunch of little plastic flutophones in boiling water, and they were distorted. They were bent, they were twisted, the plastic had partially melted, but you know, they still played. But of course, we didn't use them. We had to order new ones. I don't know why he didn't think of like using rubbing alcohol or something like that, which wouldn't have been harmful at all and would still have done the same thing. But he was just thinking in terms of getting them sanitized by putting them in boiling water. And he practically, well, he did destroy all of them. But this is a little flutophone. Now we have here, this may pitch a little. This is a sassoon. It's a black instrument. I have several of them. I have them in different keys, and I have them in different sizes. So they play in different keys. The larger ones, of course, are going to play in a deeper tones. I really love these instruments because, and this I've played it so much, I've actually worn off part of the mouthpiece. You probably wouldn't be able to see it, but wherever it's white, the black came off just because I played it so much. That's the lowest note you can get with it. That's about the highest note you can get with it. They play very well, they're easy to play, but you're going to find that they're a little bit different pitch than what the recorders are, and I'll show you that in a minute. Something that's similar to the Sassoon is a Clark's. This is a Clark's, and it's in the key of D. And it's a conical. The instruments that go and do not come to a point are cylindrical. This has no point. You know, it's the same wherever you put the same circumference wherever you put it. Maybe you can see that there. But when you get to the conicals, they come to a point, and you can see that point if I hold it up. This has a wooden fipple in it. It's called a wooden plugged fipple instrument. So it plays the same as the other penny whistles. However, it does have a softer tone because of the wooden plug, and you're going to notice that right away. They also come in the key of C. The C is kind of like a grayish color, not a black. This has like a little diamond design on it. It doesn't matter. You see, the principle of them is the same. I'm doing straight scales up and down. It doesn't matter what the instrument is. And I think if I go back, I'm going to play this again, and then I'm going to grab the sassoto. I think you're going to find that the pitch is very much the same. So we'll try this cylindrical again. The pitch is exactly the same. But if I take the recorder and play it, it's got a tone hole in the back. It pitches one step up. I'm using the same fingerings, but it pitches one step up. And I believe the reason, of course, is that it has a tone hole in the back. And these instruments do not have a tone hole in the back. But that's not universally true, because the flutophone also has a tone hole in the back, but it pitches the same as what the recorder does. So there are some differences. Now, I have a little, this is an LMI. It's a student model recorder. I usually have one with me, because you never know if a student comes in and something's wrong with an instrument. You might want them to use another instrument, but you can always sub with this. It has a softer, very, very tiny, flatter pitch than the regular one does. And if you're going to play an LMI, it's a student model. It's very inexpensive. Most of them are less than $5. They play well. I mean, you can teach well on them. There's nothing wrong with them, and I've used them a lot. However, you need to pump the air to them, because otherwise they're going to be a little tiny bit flat. The tone isn't exactly the same quality as for the Casios, for the Yamahas, and some of the others that I play, but it is a good little instrument. And then I've got the tonette. The tonette, this little tonette, it has a bell to it. Any instrument, I'm going to talk to you in a little bit about how the instruments are put together and what parts the instruments has. Any instrument that flares out, like this does, you can see it flares out. That's called a bell. The flutophone has a bell. Anything that flares out has a bell. Saxophones have them. Clarinets have a small one. Not all instruments have them. A lot of brass instruments have bells. The saxophones have them. Also French horns, trombones, trumpets. A lot of the brass instruments have bells. It's part of the design of the instrument. And this little tonette has a bell to it. Now, I don't think it makes a difference in terms of how it plays. You're going to find a difference in the quality of the tone of this. This is not what you'd call an instrument that you'd want to take into an orchestra and play, but nonetheless, you can still teach from it. So it does better than what you might. I'm always surprised when it does that well. You have to really pump the air to it. It's not hard to blow into, but to get the best tone, you really have to let it have air. If I don't, not a bad little instrument, but kind of not quite as sophisticated as some of the others. Now, I do have also with me I have a group of these. They come in different colors. They are cylindrical. They don't come to a point, and some of them have a little raised areas where you put your fingers. It's not just like a hole, but there's a little raised area, making it easy for a student to learn where the fingers are. And it has in the back a little place where you put your thumb. There's no tone hole in the back. There's no thumb hole. You put your thumb right there. There's a little place for it, and you put the other thumb of your right hand right here, so you know exactly where it is. Now, it's not the best playing little thing, but it does work. And it's in pitch with itself. This one is actually a Pearl Piper, and I have used it before, and it's in the key of E flat. I don't know why they would make it in the key of E flat. It's just maybe they made it and that's what it turned out to be. It's not a bad little instrument, and you see the pattern of the instruments are alike. They all go straight line up and down. They all are more or less in pitch with themselves. They all are fairly easy to play. You add one finger, you get another note. You add another finger, you get another note. And it's very easy to teach music when you have an instrument like that. They all have mouthpieces that are like the Fipple mouthpiece. The recorder has a Fipple mouthpiece. It's a little place where you put your air in. It has a little curved area right here, and there's a block in there. It's a little different color. I can see it from here. That's a part of the mouthpiece, and it's called a block. And it becomes part of the mouthpiece. This is the labium, and you get air out of it, and it's just straight up and down. You know, you do have to have air going in one direction only if you're going to play an instrument. Your mouth and the mouthpiece acts as one block. The flutes have a little different system where they have to have a cap on the area above where your mouth is to prevent the air from going out both ends. And so anyway, this is just a sampling. I mean, I have over 300 instruments, but a lot of them are the same. You'll be able to pick up a recorder, pick up a flutophone, pick up all these different instruments. They will have little differences between them, but you can go up and down a scale, and some of them are almost perfectly matched. For example, the recorder plays almost the same pitches in the sounds as the flutophone, which plays almost the same pitches in sound as the little song flute. And so therefore, it's not hard to stop playing and switching instruments and playing other instruments too. Now, I don't think you have that kind of a facility with a brass, but let me just try. We don't have much time left. We have a little time left. Let me try once again the little flute phone. It's a little bit sharper on the lower, but the top notes are about the same. Then, of course, you have your recorder. Just about the same. There are little tiny small differences, but just about the same. So sometimes I will come in and I'll play a song, and then I switch instruments and I play the same song with another instrument. Where you get the real differences is if you're using instruments that are in quite a bit changes in their key. For example, a saxophone plays in E flat. A tenor saxophone plays in B flat, and then you have your flutes playing in the key of C, and other instruments playing in the key of C, and then of course you can get trumpets in the key of B flat. And so it goes. And there are even different keys in recorders. The alto recorder is going to be in the key of F. And the tenor is in the key of C. And the soprano is in the key of C. The bass is in the key of F. The sopranino is in the key of F. So when you have different keys, what you have to do if you're in an orchestra, you may have to transpose and push an instrument up a few steps or down a few steps, sometimes 2 steps and a half step. In some instruments, you may have to raise it an octave and then bring it down a half a step. So, I mean, it gets complicated after a while, and it's not my intention to make this class a complicated class, but just so you understand the differences, but also the similarities between the instruments. Now, I think what I'm going to do is close it here, and what I'm going to do the next time is I'm going to show you the different parts to the instruments. I've had a lot of people not understand when I say, well, here's the ligature, or here's the cork, and here's where the rods are, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to show you the basic way that the instruments are put together in terms of their parts, and I'm going to use a little electronic saxophone because I could only carry so much, and it's very, very similar in many respects. It is a working saxophone, but it is an electronic saxophone, but it has many of the same features as a regular saxophone, so I can easily show you the parts to the various instruments, and that's what I'm going to be doing next time. So we'll close it here. Please join me then.